both of these players, obviously both decks are top tier. Who would you give an advantage to?
It's really tough. A lot of it's going to...
Along with that Klefki and even Mobile. So what do you think about these options? Like, do you think Mana Fee will be a big factor here, especially with the Canceling Cologne price over on Caleb's side?
It definitely could be for sure. It really is just going to depend on, how realistic Trifrost is as an attacking threat without Caleb having to burn V-Star. That is the big factor in this matchup. As long as Caleb can save V-Star and take a sizable prize lead, the disruption aspects, which Gardevoir relies heavily on, will not have as impactful of an effect, excuse me. And here's a big turn here for Michael. We'll start going first, and, we talked about the Klefki. That is really the Pokemon you want to put into the active spot. It just comes down to this balance, Pablo, between getting that Pokemon to your active spot while also balancing how important it is to get those Pokemon like Ralts onto your bench to allow you to be consistent and set up.
Very interesting way to check for prizes here, just putting all the Pokemon and energy in front. Makes it very efficient for sure. You have your deck essentially ordered, right, by Pokemon energy and trainers, so you can easily check what is in here. Michael also being very thorough with the note-taking, which we've seen from a lot of players, but we also have seen that a lot of top players don't do this. Why do you think that is?
It really just depends on preference. I mean, I've gone back and forth between doing this method before. Sometimes, with certain decks that play a lot of different Pokemon, like Regidrago, for example. It's just a lot easier, right, to pull every Pokemon out, see exactly what's happening. Other times, players are just more comfortable doing the things that they've done for a while. There have been some times in the Pokemon TCG where you haven't really been able to, reorganize the order of your decks. As of right now, there's really no huge issues. It is within the rules to reorganize your deck as long as you are going to sufficiently randomize your deck. Afterwards, that's Michael's approach in this case. Will just be the single Ralts coming down to the bench, so depending on what Michael has in his hand, we may not see too many Ralts come down, and not having that buddy-buddy Poffin can be a big piece in terms of getting set up and going, especially early on in the game.
Yeah, that very thorough price checking, shuffle after, does indicate that there's not going to be any more searches. And now, two Ionos priced for Michael. Iono is obviously very key for Gardevoir to help in making its comebacks, right? So that could be something that affects him down the line now. Over on Caleb's side, his hand is looking pretty good, but can you research all those resources away?
Absolutely not in this point. Cannot afford to get rid of both boss's orders. And I think a smart choice here for Caleb, just play the nest ball first. Before using his Earthen Vessel to discard a resource, check through and see what you have available. Maybe you don't have any more research in your deck. Maybe that one Pokemon you want, maybe those Teal Mask aren't in there. You gotta just make sure you check through everything before you start to commit. And we'll see sort of a similar line here for Caleb is gonna just check through the deck, see what pieces are available, and those key energy switch wants to make sure he sees that all four of those will be in the deck, which they are in this case.
Energy Switch is the reason why Regidrago is good. There's plenty of reasons, right? But Energy Switch really makes the deck tick. It allows it to take advantage of that amazing Teal Dance ability, granting extra draw power and extra energy attachment. So knowing how many you have access to, how freely you can discard maybe one or two in the beginning, depending on your hand, if you end up using Motivate. So very key thing to know throughout the match, and this way you have perfect information on exactly what you do have access to and what you don't. Now, two energies being priced along with the Superior Energy Retrieval could put a little bit of extra pressure on Caleb's resources, especially in terms of the late game, right? Having enough energy to power up, especially if you end up using Trifrost at least once.
And this is an interesting choice here for Caleb, is actually going to shuffle the deck and use Teal Dance with the one grass energy in his hand, potentially looking for a better card to discard with the Earthen Vessel. And there are two sides to this, Pablo, right? You don't thin your deck out, but you give yourself some more flexibility.
Yeah, and if you find any of your copies of Dragapult or Gudra, you always want to get those into a discard pile. However, finds the Mew, which is great for recovery, right? Mew, in some situations, can also be used to copy Radiant Greninja. That's something that we rarely see, but it is an option. I feel like a lot of players tend to forget about that. Probably not something to the level of caliber that Michael Davidson is at, but that is another cute attacker that you have as an option in Regidrago decks to help you combat anything, right? You can copy Charizard, you can copy Radiant Greninja, so that threat of the Mew is always present.
So we'll see Teal Mask Ogerpon number 2 coming down to the bench. That will mean another Teal Dance is in order. especially after those energies are found thanks to Earthen Vessel, and the Fire Energy will most likely be the attachment for turn. So great start so far for Caleb, and now does find the Regidrago V-Star, and this is a pretty interesting choice. Do you just play the supporter card here, hold the pieces, is just going to go ahead, and even after, you know, a pretty mid to lackluster start here from Michael, you never know what he's holding on to. We'll just go ahead and see 6 new cards, and the big question here, do we see some energy switch to go along with this? In fact, there's really not a lot else going on in this hand, just an Ultra Ball, which could be good for the following turn, or may just consider playing that right now. Now comes the question of, are you going to preemptively grab this V-Star, or potentially just some more basic Pokemon and rely more heavily off this Muse restart?
Caleb eyeing up the Squawkabilly, which, if he does use that, would lose his prime catcher. Of course, you can get it back with Legacy Star, right? But his hand is definitely lackluster enough to where you could justify using it. However, Squawk has 160 HP, which is the best or the worst HP to have when you're steering a Gardevoir deck that you know will try to attack with Scream Tail. Anytime you can, or your opponent can take 2 prizes without dedicating a tool card to one of his attackers and get that nice 2-for-1 price trade, that can be an issue for you.
And we'll see Nestball just go ahead and grab nothing. I mean, there was an argument that even with Regidrago V in the hand, you could thin the other one out of the deck and then discard that. However, Caleb realizes there are some worlds where you might want to just have another Regidrago down. So we're going to just see the Prime Catcher. It does luckily get this Regidrago out of the active spot. That is a good effect to have, and you can just go ahead and draw 3 cards. Those are really not the best 3 cards to draw into. Now with the Squawkabilly, you're going to get rid of one of those Regidrago V-Star and one of your powerful recovery cards, Super Odd. It will hopefully be in return for finding some better pieces, and it looks like there's some good things to work with for this and the following turn for Caleb.
We have an energy switch already. We have our research as well, but we did draw the other Super Odd as well. So this combined with the Superior Energy Retrieval and the prizes, as we said, right now, probably not a big deal. As the game progresses and resources start getting used up, that could be a little problematic for Caleb. But, I mean, so far, so good. Would you play the energy switch right now?
We'll have to see. I mean, in this spot, you know, there is a high probability that your opponent isn't going to go for Iono in an early position like this, so you could always hold on to it, depending on, you know, your opponent could get a little frisky, go ahead and chase after the other Regidrago, and therefore you save it. For now, though, on Michael's side is just going to start with evolving this Curlia, using Refinement, getting rid of Mawile, and now playing that Arven supporter card, and immediately you see that powerful Technical Machine Evolution be brought to the front of the deck.
Such a cool attack. Technical Machine Evolution, I think it's a card we're going to be talking about for many, many years at this point. Having that immediate evolution with a single energy and being able to do it with any Pokemon is just so, so powerful.
And now the choice here for Michael, does he want to commit this last bench space, fill his bench up with another Ralts? I think that is the case here. You can go ahead and get 2 more Curlia into play, or even if you'd like, evolve this Curlia into Gardevoir. You know, there's pros to both sides. Pablo, talk to me about a situation where you'd maybe want to put Gardevoir into play instead of both these Curlias.
I mean, there's always the threat of the Trifrost, right? So a combination of Canceling Cologne, which you know your opponent plays, plus a Ghosting effect would be pretty great. However, we do know that the Canceling Cologne is in the prize cards. Michael doesn't know this, right? So it's a calculated risk, right? It's still a lot to have the Ghosting effect and the unsearchable Canceling Cologne. That's the key. Yeah, you have 3 Ghosting effects, but you only have 1 Canceling Cologne. They would have to chance into it. So we've talked about players taking calculated risks, right? This is a calculated risk by Michael. It's like, yes, I am sort of vulnerable to the Trifrost play in a way, but also the Trifrost play is very unlikely to happen at this point because you don't have the Canceling Cologne in the discard pile yet. So I can take that risk, no problem.
And there's a key card coming down for Caleb, the Jamming Tower, while in play shutting down all tool cards. And while it's not a big deal right now, it could definitely be in the future. Big find there, though, for Caleb. Does find one of those energy switch. And the other question will be, what Pokemon are in the discard pile for Caleb to copy in this position? Number 1 has got to be that Dragapult EX.
I think we do have that Dragapult, the Gudra, the Kyurem already. A good amount of versatility. I guess I must have seen wrong an energy switch in the previous hand. So yeah, all ready to go in terms of attacking. Being able to attack without using your Legacy Star is, of course, the ideal path. No chance to take multiple prizes here, though. It's either Gudra or Dragapult to start spreading some damage. Perhaps 2 on each Kirlia would be ideal. That way, no matter which one evolves, you'll always have targets for multiple prize turns next turn.
So here we go. Regidrago V-Star online, second turn, exactly what you want to see. No matter who you are playing this Regidrago deck, we'll see the attack choice of Caleb here. Looks like it will just be the Phantom Dive, so Ralts will go down in the active spot, and now the question is, where do you want to put damage counters? And it looks like we're going to see the 1 damage counter on Manaphy, and interestingly enough, choosing to put 5 on Kirlia. What might be the thought process here for Caleb?
So 5 damage counters means if that Kirlia evolves, the Gardevoir EX will still have 280 HP left, which is exactly perfect for a Lost Impact knockout, right? And if that Gardevoir is the one that evolves, and you power yourself up to retreat with Psychic Embrace, even if you transfer damage with Monkey Dory's Adrenaline ability to your opponent, then you're still, or they're still in range. And another thing is, Michael only has 1 bench spot. If that becomes Monkey Dory, then there's no space for Drifloon. If that becomes Drifloon, then there's no extra damage from Monkey Dory. So it's a win-win of sorts for Caleb. But of course, he definitely wouldn't like his Regidrago to go down here. And first things first, Michael needs to get rid of this jamming tower for that to happen.
So we'll see all 3 refinements be used. Did finally find a Psychic Energy, so concealed cards could also grant Michael an additional 2 cards if he would like. There it is, concealed cards, discarding the Psychic Energy, 2 more cards. Can Michael find something like a powerful Disruption card? We see the Artisan is actually already in the hand there for Michael. And with this discarding of the Buddy Buddy Puffin, I have to wonder if Michael's maybe considering a slower approach in this situation, maybe trying to use a combination of Unfair Stamp paired with a different attacker in this case, something maybe like Monkey Dory to, confuse this Regidrago and force something like Caleb to use V-Star earlier than he'd like to not have to take the risk of the 50-50 from confusion.
Exhausting your opponent's switching cards is an integral part of this Gardevoir list strategy, right? Not only because you have the possibility to make them lose a turn if they try to attack through confusion, but also there's a possibility to trap something with Mowile, especially that Squawkabilly. But looks like Michael's gonna choose to go in with the Drifloon at this point. There's the Mowile at the very top. We could see a Suprod maybe being considered.
Yeah, the big question for me right now, at least at this point, is are there enough Psychic Energy in the discard pile? And I don't think there are. You're going to need 5 Psychic Energy to make that happen. And with there being so many still on the deck and with all these refinements already being used, the only way we could possibly get here is if there was something like an Ultra Ball in the hand plus everything else. So here we go. Michael's going to have to expand a good amount of resources, but it will most likely mean this Drifloon gets to that 300 damage to knock out this Pokemon. And I think with him, going aggressive, playing the Earthen Vessel, and now the Ultra Ball to get Gardevoir, he's going to have just enough to get this knockout.
Is it though? I think that's 4 in the discard pile. I might be wrong.
Surely it has to. I mean, Michael is too experienced of a player in this spot to make this play if it wasn't there. So we're going to see as he fans the discard pile. 1, 2, 3. Unless there aren't. I mean, we're going to find out in a second here, Pablo. If not, Michael is committing to a play that, may not have a lot of merit here. Is actually going to play the Unfair Stamp as
needs
well.
To draw Psychic. I might be wrong, but I mean, if there's 5, obviously he has it. If there's 4, though, needs to draw a Psychic Energy here to attach, right? And then get that energy in the discard pile by retreating. We'll see. Yeah, of course, yeah. Michael knows, whether he's doing this and already has the 5 Psychics or he doesn't, and this is a calculated risk once again, right? Choosing or making sure that this is a more powerful, impactful play than just benching your Screamtail. Yeah, there's 4. There's... Oh,
finds
wow.
the Earthen Vessel, so that will be number 5 right here.
Yep.
Big time find for Michael. That will push him over the line and allow him to pick this knockout up. Now, the only question here is, do you grab both Psychics? Do you want to maybe preemptively grab the Dark Energy? Will just be both the Psychic Energies, and big turn here for Michael, getting all of those Psychic Energies in the discard pile and essentially out of nowhere, pulling Drifloon and allowing it to take a knockout on Regidrago and immediately put Caleb in a situation where he's got no energy on any of these real bench attackers. Sure, you could take a 1 prize in return with the Teal Mask, but that is not what you're looking to do on this next turn.
With Legacy Star still available, this is still a very fine play. However, this definitely puts pressure on Caleb's side to recover, right? There's no Fezandipity. Mew can draw you up to 3 cards, but the likelihood of these 2 cards being both playable immediately is not super, super high. So a lot of pressure being put from Michael onto Caleb's side of the board, as we see a research top deck from Caleb. Wow.
Big time find. Research is going to make it a little bit easier here on Caleb to find these pieces. Is only down 1 energy switch as things stand. So, ideal dream scenario here, Caleb. You find those energy switch, you find the fire energy, and if you can preserve that Legacy Star for as long as possible, going to be in a really solid spot, especially when, at this point, if you can maybe find some way to, gust a Pokemon up and take a knockout, or even this jamming tower could be really solid, since you do have it in the discard pile now, thanks to Legacy Star. We'll see how things play out, and Caleb's actually going to take the opportunity to not only search through the deck, but also shuffle and reorganize things here.
All 3 energy switches were literally next to each other. If Caleb hadn't done this, the research I don't think would have reached any of the energy switches, which were all close together. So pretty funny to see that. We're going to see a research. Let's see what he finds. 7 cards is a lot of cards.
How many energy switch? No energy switch in that position, but the turn is not over yet. Caleb does still have access to Nest Ball, Ultra Ball, plenty of ways to get these cards out of the deck, and mainly it may come down to another, I feel like we say this over and over again, big flip the script abilities to close things out.
Now with Legacy Star, you can get back the jamming tower, right? That means an immediate knockout on this Drifloon before you have even attacked. So what gets promoted then? Probably the mana fee, but then you risk the possible Trifrost if there's a canceling Cologne, or you bring up the Gardevoir and that could get lost impacted, or you just get Phantom Dive, the mana fee goes down, and then there's already been 1 Super Rod exhausted, so the mana fee goes down, recovering it again to protect from Trifrost could be difficult.
Yeah, and Caleb is down a lot of resources, and let's not forget, down both of those Super Rod at this point. So you've got to wonder, if you're using Legacy Star, one of those cards might have to be the Super Rod. What are the 3? Does find one energy switch, but that's not going to be enough in this spot. May have to rely off this Teal Dance for 1, Pablo. This is a big 1 card. Can Caleb find the energy switch? Does find the energy switch off the Teal Dance for 1. Are you kidding me?
They might have been stuck all together again. Wow, back-to-back energy switches off of those last cards. Caleb will be able to attack once again. Now, the thing here is, he doesn't need to use V-Star to attack, but do you use it anyways? Because if your Regidrago goes down, there's no backup Regidrago anyways, right? Because you had to fill up your bench with that Fezandipity. But how many cards are even left in the deck? Are there less than 7 at this point?
It has to be close to that, potentially. But, I mean, allowing Caleb to find that energy switch, while, of course, he could have grabbed it with Legacy Star, is still big, because you see immediately he needs to grab Super Rod, and he wants to grab the Jamming Tower. So this allows him to not only attack, but also make it so that he's going to take the free knockout on Drifloon and have a route to victory no matter what Pokemon gets promoted here. Yeah, I just don't necessarily see a world where, if you decide to not use Legacy Star this turn, then your opponent's only, a Night Stretcher or Super Rod plus a Bravery Charm away from you ever getting value from that ability for the rest of the game.
Caleb trying to conserve as many cards as he can in his hand. But yeah, if I counted correctly, there's exactly 6 or 7 cards here right now, right? So then you have to grab a Super Rod. And if you grab the Stadium, right, then that means you only have 3 cards to play with for the rest of the match. And we do see the V-Star. No cards left here for Caleb. Has to grab a Super Rod no matter what. And then I guess you grab the Jamming Tower, but how do you close this game out? Now, a really good thing for Caleb is Michael Davidson only plays one copy of Artisan in his deck. All right, so there's not going to be any more tools being utilized. Regidrago V-Star cannot be KO'd anymore after this turn.
Yeah, and another big thing is, importantly enough, Caleb did draw into the one remaining copy of Boss's Orders, discarded the other copy with the Legacy Star, so we'll still have one more Gusting card available in the deck, and that is a big thing to have.
I don't like this from Michael. I wish he was promoting the mana fee to prevent a 2-price knockout this turn, or even if your opponent uses the Canceling Cologne, takes a triple knockout, they're going to have no energy left, no energy switches left, no way to really switch out at all, so you shouldn't really respect the Trifrost at this point.
I think I agree with you, Pablo, here. You know, it's hard to see it in the moment, but that is the resource war that these players have to be thinking about both players and the cards that have been expended, the resources that have been expended, and Caleb's going to take advantage of this potential mistake here from Michael. Double knockout, copying the Phantom Dive. We will see Michael get to promote a new Pokemon here. Does show, of course, that Dragapult has been in the discard pile. Caleb going down to just 2 prize cards with this Boss's Order still in the hand. Michael is essentially put on a very tough clock here to keep himself in this game.
And now the threat of Trifrost is very real, right? Because now Caleb did find the Canceling Cologne, a resource that Michael hasn't seen Caleb utilize yet. So even if he rebenches the mana fee, if you have mana fee, you can't evolve both of these Kirlias because these decks only play 2 Gardevoir EX. I mean, do you just not bother with the mana fee at all at this point, I guess?
And
yeah,
there's not even a trapping strategy because everything on the bench has 1 retreat. And spoiler alert, Caleb's next card he's going to draw from his deck is guaranteed to be an energy. Super Rod put back 2 fire energy and 2 grass into the deck. So that is guaranteed. So the question here for Michael is your best play in this position to use Monkey Dory to confuse the Regidrago, especially if you're going to have to take a 2-hit knockout, or is considering even the Mawile with Tempting Trap? And that is the question here. Does Caleb have a way to switch out this Squawk ability from the active spot? I'm actually not sure if there's a switch available. If not, that is going to be a tough situation here.
I mean, he could generally trap any of these 3 Pokemon, right? There's probably not enough energy left to power up any of them. But Squawk is the safest one because if they do manage to power up his Antipity somehow, right, you are in trouble. They can snipe 100 onto something. But we do see the Nest Ball onto the Mawile. Do we have the Gusting effect to close this one out?
That was a big draw of the refinement because at this point, we were missing one of those 2 pieces. So now Mawile comes down and the Counter Catcher and Switch and Prime Catcher are both in the discard pile. All Michael needs to do, since there's no Iono left, since I believe it's still in Caleb's prize cards. I know Caleb prized one of these Iono. It's really crucial to know how many ways he has to recycle cards and prevent himself from decking out as long as possible. And I think that Iono is still stuck in the prize cards. Oh, no, actually, it's not stuck in the prize cards, but if Caleb doesn't have any way to recycle cards anymore, then this is going to be an extremely tough spot, and Michael may be able to win this game from the rare deck out condition, the rare win condition of your opponent having no cards to draw at the start of their turn.
I think Tempting Trap might be it. Now, of course, you can say, well, if you trap the Squawk, right, they can still hit you for 20, but you have Monkey Dory with a Darkness Energy available eventually in order to send the damage back. So we do see the trap happening right about now. No way for Caleb to switch out here. Does get the energy, so we will see a lot of motivates, and the pressure's on Michael to find the Darkness Energy. Both Earthen Vessels have been exhausted. We do have draw from the Kirlias, but as you mentioned, if there's no Ionos left, then he needs to be aware of deck out as well.
Absolutely. It is actually 1 Iono in Caleb's hand, but it will all be for naught if the Monkey Dory comes into play, because it will essentially heal 10 damage every turn from that Adrenabrain ability.
There's the Darkness Energy.
And is there a Monkey Dory in the prizes? There is a big find here for Michael, and I think with this Monkey Dory plus Darkness Energy, this will about wrap things up. Caleb will have no way to deal with this Mawile. It will be clean, fresh healed by the time a few more turns pass, and this is checkmate here from Michael Davidson.
No matter how motivated this Squawk ability is, it's just not going to be enough to really get through, and Caleb recognizes the game is over What a turnaround from a very dominating game from Caleb. Michael ends up making a comeback and locking Squawkabilly in the active spot.
That is sort of the risk, right, of using that V-Star power aggressively to take prize cards. Mawile is a card that allows you to give yourself an extra win condition. If Michael doesn't have Mawile in that spot, we are in a completely different endgame. Caleb has the boss's orders for next turn. He can dig through almost his entire deck based off of what he put in with those last 3 cards, but things just played out completely differently, and I have to wonder if you're Caleb, was that a card you were aware of in your opponent's deck, or was it something that you kind of just had to hope in that spot your opponent didn't find or was able to hit?
Let's take a look at what happened in this game 1. But yeah, I'm guessing Caleb just wasn't aware of the Mawile threat and the way his opponent played it out, right? Nothing indicated that there was any sort of potential for Mawile. They took the knockout with Triflin. Caleb took the knockout back, but the exhaustion of the V-Star was definitely very, very clutch at that point. No way to recycle Prime Catcher, no way to recycle Switch, and that was it.
Back and forth between this whole game, Caleb found the perfect resources he needed to, make this whole jamming tower play to take 3 prize cards, put himself so close to victory, but it was ideally the Monkey Dory plus Mawile combination that allowed him to trap the bird in the active spot, put the bird away in its cage, and get himself 1 game closer to winning this asymmetrical cut top match and getting revenge for what happened in Louisville.
Now, Caleb even had an opportunity to not need to bench the Squawkabilly, right? So it'll be interesting to see how he adapts to the knowledge now that he has about the Mawile threat, right? Will he be more conservative with his Legacy Star? Will he be more conservative with his bench management as well? As we mentioned, Squawkabilly is the best Pokemon to trap. Mew and Fizandipity can be trapped as well, just like the Ogerpons, but they all can attack with 3 energies, and the deck definitely plays enough out to try to power them up. But we are going to see a Radiant Charizard start, an extremely awkward Pokemon to go off with because it has a high retreat cost, and if your opponent doesn't take too many prizes in the beginning, you really can't attack with it as well.
Wow, not a great hand here, or start from Michael, just attaching a Drifloon, pinching that Ralts, and passing the turnover. And look at that, 2 Curlia in the prize cards for Michael. Never what you want to see if you're a Gardevoir player.
Whilst over on the other side, we have the Jamming Tower being prized as well, so no free prizes for Caleb this time around. It'll probably be the last prize he ends up taking, but based on Michael's hand, we might not even get to that point even.
We'll see what Caleb has. Of course, starting that Radiant Charizard, not a great starter because of that Excited Heart ability being good later on in the game, and also that hefty 3 retreat cost just makes it so annoying to move out in and out of the active spot, especially when we've seen in this match how valuable Switch cards can be in the face of the threat of Mawile.
Now, being once again very thorough with the price checking, we do have 3 Ultra Balls, I think I saw, in the hand, which Ultra Ball is a great card. When you have 3 of them in your hand, you probably can't make use out of all of them, and you will not have access to them later down the line. What would you like to see here from Caleb? Do you go for Squawk, even though that's what lost you the game last time around?
It completely depends on the rest of the hand. I mean, if you have no supporter and no way to draw more cards, you've got to take a risk here. You can't just hold on to the Legacy Star and use that next turn. I feel like that's a more, detrimental risk to take than it is to put Squawkabilly in play, right? You maybe don't have to use a switch as early as you do. You hold on to it, and then that situation, becomes completely different, assuming you can, preserve 1 more card. There were a lot of factors that went into Caleb losing that game, and the big one, honestly, was burning those Super Rod early in the game. I think he grabs a card like Prime Catcher, ideally in a different spot, or, the Jamming Tower isn't found as early, or 100% things go differently. The Legacy Star grabbing 2 different cards changes the factor of that game.
100%. A lot of things could go differently, but if you're not, I'm sure if you ask Caleb before the match, he could write down 59 or 58 of Michael Davidson's 60-card deck list. But that Mawile is definitely an obscure card. We haven't seen it in Gardevoir before this event, to my knowledge. So, yeah, that surprise factor. We heard it from Henry Chow himself, talking about his win in Gardevoir, with Gardevoir back in Baltimore. Yeah, the surprise factor is a big deal for many players.
And a very awkward
What?
hand here. Finds 3 energy switch, had to get rid of a few research, and now after not choosing to attach that grass energy to his Regidrago, may miss an effective attachment this turn because it just feels like too much of a risk to not use Teal Dance here. That will be the choice here. Caleb, can you find an energy card?
No.
No energy attachment in this spot, and not much else going on in this hand at all.
And you cannot Squawk and Seize 2 energy switches, can you?
Already did use that Squawk and Seize.
No,
use the
use
restart
research.
first, and then, has not used Squawk and Seize?
Research. He got research from you,
Oh,
but
one
yeah,
second,
that's 3 energy switches gone.
Decided to use the research there, makes complete sense, but drawing into all of those energy switch, and now with how things are standing, Caleb, well, sure, he can attack next turn, but what is going to be the follow-up for the rest of the game when immediately you have this chip on your shoulder of, I'm going to need to grab these energy switch back at some point with my powerful Legacy Star V-Star power.
It might be fine, though, because Michael's hand is just so underwhelming. No Kirlia, no Supporter, no Technical Machine Evolution, no Puffin. Barely can get a second Ralts into play, and if he doesn't bench anything else, could be down to a Trifrost taking down the whole game. Now, we could search for Manaphy as well at this point in time. We're going to get the Klefki to try to slow down Caleb a little bit, but this Regidrago already has the 2 energies it needs, so just needs to find 1 fire and a switching card, whether that's Prime Catcher or Switch, and that'll be enough. So that Klefki not really shutting down too much. Of course, it shuts down Teal Dance, but the energies are already in play. You're taking away 1 card from your opponent, essentially.
Okay, here we go. We'll see exactly what's going to happen in this situation. Mawile gets benched to prevent against Trifrost, right? Winning the game automatically. And here we go. What does Caleb have in this spot? The first key piece, of course, has that Regidrago V-Star. And now the question is, Caleb's got a variety of these basic Pokemon in hand. Is there merit to using this bench spot as either this Teal Mask or Regidrago? Instead, just going to discard these 4 Pokemon, draw 7 cards, and we'll see here if Caleb has what he needs to attack. There's the switch, but it has the Fire Energy too. Big time draw here for Caleb. Doesn't even have to use Prime Catcher, just has the switch in hand. And with Michael's slow start, Caleb is going to be able to capitalize.
Do you go after the Mawile? Do you go after the Klefki? Do you go after the single Ralts in play with the Prime Catcher? Do you just knock out the active with Switch? I guess there's my answer. Off the races for Caleb whilst his opponent is dead drawing. Now, is this a repeat of Louisville finals? Right? Like, I mean, I guess Caleb lost game 1 this time. No, yeah, Caleb lost game 1, then Michael Davidson dead drew on his second game. What will happen in the third game? Michael must be having deja vu right now.
Yeah, this is one of the things that you do not love happening, but this is what it comes down to. We will see how things play out. Michael is essentially on a 1-turn clock from this point, right? He's going to be able to spread some damage counters on these benched Pokemon with Phantom Dive, and then just choose what the situation is going to be from here, how he wants to go about wrapping these prizes out. But the big key piece is, if there's no pieces, it's going to be very, very difficult. So we'll see 5 damage counters be put on the Drifloon. That prevents it from, using Psychic Embrace to get powered up. And here's the top deck, and it is, again, nothing irrelevant, just the Monkey Dory. I mean, you can go ahead and bench that and attach the Dark Energy to it. It would, give yourself the option to take Ralts out of range from Phantom Dive next turn, but you're going to be conceding 2 prize cards at minimum regardless this turn.
There's no way around it. Now, finally, Manaphy comes down to protect from a potential Trifrost. There is still the trapping option, I guess, but realistically, not having even a single Kirlia in play is just so bad here for Michael.
Here we go. This is the question here. What can we do? We're just going to heal the damage off and pass things over on Caleb's side. And he has essentially just been giving free turn after free turn and is now thinking about whether or not it's worth playing this Prime Catcher. There is the Mew EX on the bench, so there's a guaranteed pivot back into the active spot. You could go ahead and target down this Ralts. Do you think this is, getting a little bit overzealous, or is Caleb in his right here to go after and chase this Ralts down?
I mean, definitely possible. You still have your Legacy Star to recycle those switching cards, but does feel a little unnecessary when if your opponent threatens a Kirlia next turn, that's still fine. And now you can push all the damage to the Kirlia, to the Raltsary to make sure it's in range. of getting knocked out next turn. So does him a little overzealous in a way, but Caleb might be so far ahead that it might not matter at all.
And see, that's the thing, right? Could have used the Teal Dance first and actually drew into the boss's orders, and that would have just been a much better card to play in this situation. So a little bit of interesting sequencing there from Caleb, not drawing all the cards necessary. I'm sure if he knew that card was boss's orders, would have just played that instead of the Prime Catcher. That's, one more resource. But as things stand right now, Michael is in a world of hurt. He is down to his last draw here, and now finds the Kirlia. So it ends up being the right play here for Caleb. And, I mean, if you're Michael, we think we're just scooping and going to the next game. We are Pablo. Game 3 coming up here. The winner going into that top 8 cut. Loser will go home knowing they were one step away, just on the doorstep from getting into another top 8 cut.
This was basically Caleb playing solitaire at this point in time. Game 2 was just completely one-sided for Michael. Hopefully, we get a very good back and forth game 3. And I mean, this is part of the reason why a lot of players stay away from Gardevoir, right? The deck is powerful. The deck is amazing and has incredible attackers and single prize Pokemon that just deal with everything. But the issue with Gardevoir is always setting up, right? Can you set up for 16 rounds to win a tournament, or is Gardevoir running out of gas at this point?
Big consistency issues. I was getting flashbacks during that game, thinking towards the numerous times when I played this deck at the start of the rotation, when it shifted away from the reversal energy and the Shining Arcana to this evolution style build of hands I would look at where I'd be like, okay, I guess I'm just going to attach pass and I'll lose the game in 2 turns. Cool. Have fun with that. That's just what happens with a lot of decks. Some decks are just built in a stronger engine than others. Some are not. That's just the way Pokemon works. As we'll be getting set up this time. I wonder, if Michael will choose to go first or second in this spot, as, Caleb lost that game and actually elected to go second. So an interesting approach in terms of what is enabled. And looks like Michael's still choosing to go first in this 3rd game. So we'll be able to start things off, maybe threaten some refinements into Gardevoirs the next turn, and Squawkabilly EX as the starter. It's a card that has had a lot of merit for Caleb to dig through the deck, but, was his downfall in that first game. Now has no choice around it. It's in play, whether he likes it or not.
I think it wouldn't have been his downfall if he had known about the Mobile. So now in game 3, obviously he knows about it. He's going to be extremely careful to not be put in that situation once again. As we see Michael have a much better start. I think he has 2 Ralts in his hand, has a Puffin as well to get everything out, has a Kirlia already as well, along with energy for concealed cards. So I'm hoping, Ethan, we get a very good back and forth game 3 where we see amazing plays throughout the match.
Well, this is the question here for Michael, is if you have this Puffin and the energy, is there merit to just grabbing Klefki and throwing it in the active spot, right? Your opponent already has Squawk in play. You'd shut off that ability, and you'd shut off the Teal Dance as well. And, you could essentially have what happened to you in game number 2 essentially thrown back to Caleb. And, if you give this Gardevoir deck time, it is just going to run away with the game.
I would love to see the Klefki here that you mentioned. It's pretty fantastic Pokemon. It's not priced at all. There are 2 Arven priced for Michael. I wonder if he was as thorough as he could have been to check. However, we see Puffin for... Oh, no, it was the Ralts and the Manaphy. So perhaps we might not see the Klefki. I don't know if there was another one available. I mean, with the thorough shuffle, I'm guessing there's not going to be any more search. Maybe it's already in the hand. I don't know.
That's the potential. It could already be in the hand. There is a weird interaction with Klefki and Manaphy where, your opponent can always Prime Catcher up your Klefki, and then it essentially acts as a built-in canceling cologne to shut things off. But we're actually just going to see the concealed cards draw 2 cards instead. Didn't want to play the Puffin, or wanted to play the Puffin afterwards, is instead just going to fill the bench up with Ralts and pass. So Michael is committing to not playing this game out with Klefki in the active spot early on, is instead going to try and just set his board up as normal and hope that the Manaphy is enough to provide protection.
And I mean, he must be confident, right? He must know that, sure, Klefki can slow my opponent down, but I can just beat them with a solid enough setup. Just like it happened in game 1, perhaps we are going to see that in game 2. We have the follow-up Iono, we have the Kirlia. Now it's on Caleb to be able to fully set up, get a board going, and starting Squawkabilly feels pretty good in this spot because you get to draw extra cards, but also you have Motivate, right? So that puts way less pressure on your energy switches. if you discard 2 energies and attach to Squawk, you're ready to go with no energy switches needed. We do see that one of them is prized. We also see the Clef are prized, but with a supporter in hand and with Squawk, I don't think we're going to be needing that. The Gudra could be key in a way. We have 2 copies of Dragapult, so it's fine to prize
we
one.
don't. We have just 1 copy of Dragapult EX in this deck.
Oh, you're right.
There's only 1 copy.
I'm thinking of a different. I'm thinking of Christian's list who had 2. Yeah, you're right.
So with the only 1 copy of Dragapult and with the 1 copy of Hisuian Gudra in the prizes, the only attack that Regidrago can copy in this instance is Dragon Laser on the Draco V and Lost Impact on the Giratina V-Star. Both are just not efficient attacks you want to be using for 3 energy.
I mean, or obviously Trifrost, but Manaphy just completely shuts that down, at least for now, at least until we find the Canceling Cologne. So those 2 Pokemon, yeah, they're very key. I just always assume there's 2 Dragapults, but yeah, there's only one
This is why I've been a fan of 2 Dragapult, because of course you're only using the 1, but if you prize it, it just changes the entire narrative of the game. And, you know, Caleb might have to go into the tank here and, you know, maybe weave in some early game Ogerpon attacks or something like Mew to copy some attacks. You never know. But yeah, definitely going to have to get in the thinking tank a bit and understand that, look, Lost Impact's only really going to be a good attack into something like the Gardevoir EX. Otherwise, Teal Mask is going to do the same thing, especially with Manaphy on the bench.
Manaphy being so key. A lot of Gardevoir players not playing it, but could prove to be super important. We see a switch. We're going to lose an energy switch. The switch already being exhausted is probably very good for Michael's trapping plan if there is ever an opening for that. We see the Prime Catcher in hand. And that means if we use Squawk and Seize, that's gonna be a problem for Caleb later down the line. These draws have just been incredibly awkward for him in this game 3.
And what do you even do in this spot? Are you just gonna Teal Dance and try and find another energy? We've already used our supporter for turn. It will be the Teal Dance for 1, finds the Pokestop, and I think this is Caleb just saying, you know, I'm down too many pieces, and I have too many pieces prized. I'm going to have to try and get aggressive here. I'm going to have to try and, you know, get some swings early on with a Teal Mask, have my Dragos at least set up to threaten Legacy Star. And, you know, this information isn't yet public for Michael, so Michael's going to go about his business assuming these pieces are available. But once the game starts to slowly aggress and digress and, you know, everything keeps continuing, I think Michael's going to start to get the hint that there are some pieces in the prizes.
Especially if we see this Terra Orb being played and not grabbing a Dragapult. I think that's going to be the best hint, right, at that happening. Now, did find that Earthen Vessel, so we'll be able to get an attachment going onto that Regidrago, which is very important. Didn't discard enough energies to use Motivate this time around, which I think would have been the ideal plan. Oh, wait, actually, he has the Ultra Ball in hand, so he could potentially discard the 2 energies, energy switch onto the Squawk, and use Motivate to have the the Regidrago ready. However, okay, well, we're not gonna do Motivate at all. All right, fair enough.
Nope.
I'm too excited about the Motivate, I guess.
No Motivate play here for Caleb. Doesn't want to give any opportunities of putting this Squawk ability in the active spot, forcing resources out. Never know what your opponent's going to be able to put together. Instead, looks to just want to leave this Mew in the active spot as a, you know, potential pivot into whatever attacker Caleb is able to put together next turn. And the question now is, can you afford to ever go after, you know, something with Prime Catcher, poke it with Motivate, do some other plays? Is it really worth using your Squawk and Seize? No, Squawk ability getting no value this game. It would just be too detrimental to use, as Michael is going to have an excellent turn 2, can just concealed cards to draw even more, already has the Curlia at hand, and can draw an additional 6 cards essentially here with this Iono already in the hand.
Caleb did consider that Squawk and Seize, right? Which would have been extremely aggressive. He's not going to be happy seeing this Iono. He already had his own Iono, the Regidrago V-Star, and energy for next turn. But still missing that crucial energy switch. He did lose 1 in the beginning. He also probably knows that 1 is prized at this point in time. So powering up that Regidrago could be a little difficult this time around.
And Michael, though, does miss all the other Curlias of the deck. Let's not forget You know, there were 2 prizes last game, none in the prizes this time, and also not finding that technical machine evolution. There are 2 copies of that in the deck, so it looks like Michael's just going to only put 1 Curlia in play, and hold on, while that Prime Catcher did go to the bottom of the deck, even if it's not pretty, even if it's not a Dragapult attack, something like Dragon Laser plus Prime Catcher or Boss to knock out Curlia would essentially grant Caleb an extra turn, since, let's not forget, this deck isn't playing Rare Candy anymore on the Gardevoir side.
Super awkward hand for Caleb here. Does have a research, but would lose Super Odd, would lose a few energies.
Oh, and the jamming tower goes down, only to find an Ultra Ball and an Earthen Vessel. Those are still good pieces to have in this spot, as well as understanding that there is just 1 Regidrago left in the deck. One of those V-Star, I think, is just considering to find as many pieces out and then use that Super Odd to put these V-Star or energies back to the deck.
And this is where you're hoping to draw bad cards from Teal Dance, right? You don't want to draw Ionu, you don't want to draw Prime Catcher off of these 2 Teal Dances. Makes you question whether it's even worth it to use them at this point. You don't need the extra energy right about now. You could have attached it afterwards. You do need to find that Regidrago V-Star. You do need to find Energy Switch. Earthen Vessel is a fine find so far. We need a bad card here for Caleb, and it's just another grass. So still fine. Not the worst, not the best. Will go nice with that Super Rod that he has. But that's all the recovery cards gone now for Caleb before Legacy Star.
Yeah, we have just lost so many pieces at this point. We're losing the Super Rod, the Superior Energy Retrieval is about to go down. We've got the Dragos in the discard pile. We just lost our Jamming Tower as well. A Switch card is down, and it makes you question, right? Eventually, Legacy Star is going to want to get back so many different pieces that Caleb's going to have to make serious sacrifices, especially when you are dealing with the threat of Mawile always having a win condition via trapping the Squawkabilly.
All right. Caleb didn't discard the fire, right? And Caleb only plays 2 fire energies. So, okay, we do have the Ultra Ball to discard it and then put it back. Because if that fire is not discarded and then put back with Super Rod, there would have been no fire energy access outside of Legacy Star. And that could have made it very difficult to have 2 attacks with Regidrago V-Star alongside whatever resource extra you needed. Now, you recover 1 Regidrago V-Star and the 2 energies. That's pretty fair, right? So running very bare bones here right now, but we need to hit an energy switch in. If we don't hit one and we have to dedicate our Legacy Star just for an energy switch, Caleb might not have enough resources to close out a 6-prize game at this point.
Here we go, big 7 cards off research. Just needs to find one of those energy switch in the deck. Here it comes down to, will Caleb find this energy switch? 7 cards drawn off the Professor's research, and
I don't think he did.
I don't think it's in there. No energy switch. A huge miss here for Caleb. Had multiple copies remaining in the deck, and without this, what do you do in this spot? Do you burn your Legacy Star? You can't even use Pokestop. That's already been exhausted. Both Teal Dances are gone. I don't even know if this hand can be thinned down enough to draw even a single card with that Muse restart ability either.
They were so close to the bottom too, so it was almost impossible to find. Yeah, you can't restart. I think you have to pass. You cannot use your V-Star at this point in time. I mean, you have the small advantage that, you know, your opponent's hand was very underwhelming for the previous turn, but the more turns you give Gardevoir, the worse it is for you.
I mean, if your opponent even just uses something like, you know, Miracle Force into your UEX next turn, how are you coming back from the game? Is just going to have to pass the turn over again. We could see Michael pop off in this spot, has the Concealed Cards ability, a Guaranteed Refinement, and with Arven, so many options, drawing into some more supporters here with this Concealed Cards. And after all these draws, all this dig, we'll see what Michael decides to put together on this turn.
Cannot emphasize how much that Motivate is so important. If you had used Motivate that previous turn, then you don't need Energy Switch to just go in and swing against your opponent. So that missed turn could determine who wins here. Now, Michael still just trying to set up, right? Just trying to stabilize, can access the Technical Machine Evolution, can get 2 more Kirlids into play.
thinking about using the Pokestop, was almost gesturing his hand over to say he's going to use
And
it,
yeah.
spinning the Pokestop, and gets rid of 3
Ooh.
important pieces, including one of those technical machines. I have to wonder what Michael valued looking for in that
Yeah.
spot, especially with Arvin able to grab one of those items.
Yeah, what are you trying to discard at that point? You have 4 energies already. Maybe maybe you're looking for an earthen vessel to get more energies. But yeah, I have to wonder what the intention was with that. We're now gonna see the technical machine evolution. I mean, thankfully there's 2 in the deck, right? But having the Drifloon and the Gardevoir, speaking of applying resources or applying pressure to your resources, this deck only plays 2 Subrots, right? And if Manaphy goes down at some point, or once you attack with Drifloon, like you'll have to recover it to get another attack, possibly. So yeah, and we see the Superrod getting picked up immediately.
Yeah, just an extra resource now that has to be committed on Michael's side based off of, a play that maybe did not have a lot of estimated return, even in its best circumstances. So both players, getting a little bit unlucky in terms of the variance, making some risks that haven't paid off so far. And Michael is just going to, in response to this free turn, essentially, take it slow. Continue to not get over aggressive, not throw a Gardevoir up to take this knockout since, it could be knocked out in return from lost impact. And instead, take the turn to evolve both Pokemon. And interestingly enough, is going to favor not to get 2 Kirlia into play, but instead pre-evolve into this Gardevoir EX.
I'm so thankful we have 75 minutes here, because otherwise we would be calling time and we would be seeing a tie. But to add insult to injury, Caleb top decks the energy switch to start off the turn, when now he doesn't even need it. He just needs to attach a grass and he's ready to go. I mean, you're happy you have that for later, but we're finally going to see some aggression happen here. There's no way for Caleb to take 2 prizes, not only because the Dragapult is prized, but there aren't even any targets for him. So now, do you Dragon Laser, just take the knock it on the active? Do you dig for Trifrost? Do you dig for the Prime Catcher plus Canceling Cologne? Caleb doesn't have both of those cards in his hand, and both of those cards are in the deck. So there's a solid chance you could find them at this point in time, especially if you roll the Pokestop.
Yeah, that's always the risk here. Do you go for Pokestop and risk always getting rid of more resources that you need? With the boss already in hand, though, all you need to do is find the Canceling Cologne off this Pokestop, and you could save your V-Star power in a position like this. Is thinking about just retreating into the Regidrago. It will come up into the active spot. Caleb, what attack are you going to copy in this position? You don't even have the great options. We've got Dragon Laser, and we've got Lost Impact on this poor Giratina, and what can we do?
It's only Dragon Laser. It's literally the only option available. Yep.
Wow,
130 damage.
Using Dragon Laser to knock out this Greninja Manaphy will prevent all damage done to the bench, that 30 damage being reduced. And now, while Caleb does finally strike first and does take that Goodra off the prizes, the question now comes, is it too little? Is it too late? And as Michael, with a board completely set up, if you threaten a knockout onto this active, your opponent's already down their jamming tower. They're down at least 2 of those energy switch. How realistic is it for them to knock out your Pokemon back and put jamming tower in play?
Well, the jamming tower's in the discard pile, so yeah, they can only do it once, right? If you keep your Artisan, then you can counter that immediately. Things are looking pretty good for Michael, I would say. Full setup. I mean, I guess missing a Kirlia here, which is completely fine. You already have your Gardevoir, you have your Kirlia, I think that's going to be the 5th Psychic Energy in the discard pile. Maybe he still needs to find a way to get
the Drip. Oh, has it already?
Oh,
right,
yeah.
Let's not remember, has Super Rod,
yeah.
Poffin, and also has the Bravery Charm already in the hand, and even has some things for next turn like Monkey Dory and Dark Energy, and did draw into that 3rd copy of Kirlia. So we'll have another refinement ability online. Looks like we'll just go ahead and play the Super Rod. Going to grab back the Gardevoir EX, Drifloon, and the Dark Energy, and get things underway with a solid response turn. Caleb put in all that work to get that Regidrago V-Star just to copy Dragon Laser to now get 1 hit knocked out in return. Not what you want to see here.
Yeah, that 1 turn at a time is really not good enough for Regidrago decks. Caleb was just always short that 1 energy, and at this point the game could be as simple as a 2-for-1 trade for Michael every single time, right? Drifloon, take down Regidrago, Drifloon, take down the next Regidrago, and then boss or counter catcher with Gardevoir to knock out either the Mew or the Squawkabilly for a game with a Gardevoir EX, right?
Yeah, Screamtail even, right?
Or
to knock out
Screamtail,
that.
yeah. Screamtail does the work as well against that Squawkabilly. If you Iono your opponent, they have Kirlias and Fezandipiti, a great backbone to have against Iono. Even Caleb gets Iono'd in return, so things just not looking good for Regidrago at this point. You need to apply pressure way, way earlier, and I think it all comes down to the motivate. Caleb had Earthen Vessel, had Ultra Ball to get the energies into a discard pile, could have attached energy there, and could have attacked one turn earlier. One turn can be the difference between becoming champion or staying away in acing.
Wow, it even has the unfair stamp, draws into it off the Iono, understands this is the best turn to apply as much disruptive pressure as possible. You're going to knock out your opponent's only Regidrago V-Star in play, leave them with just 2 cards and a dream with that Mew to have a little bit of backup with the restart. But, you know, Caleb is already, as you said, down so many resources that he's going to need a lot, not only to put this attack together, but even if he uses his V-Star power, what will come next is just so many openings, so many holes in terms of his game plan and his win condition.
There's only one energy switch left in the deck as well. Did draw Regidrago V-Star, right, and Giratina, so Regidrago V-Star is step number 1, but if you end up using your V-Star at this point just to be able to attack, just to be able to take down this Drifloon, maybe you get a 2-price knock. No, you can't get a 2-price knockout because the Dragapult is not available. I keep forgetting. So you have to attack with Goodra, I guess, to try to prevent the next Drifloon from knocking you out.
Yeah, there's some weird things you could do, like Jamming Tower, Boss on Fezandipiti, and Lost Impact, but it's just so many resources, and then you're still struggling to take your last 2 prize cards, and you're going to have to, you know, throw those energies away to the Lost Zone. Big question here, what does Caleb have? Not a bad 3 cards, Prime Catcher plus the Drago V-Star, but it looks like Caleb is actually just going to restart for 1. Finds Research. Okay, that's a good piece to find, but now the question comes, what do we do here? Is there a Pokemon that we could realistically bring up off this Prime Catcher that's going to get us good value? You see Caleb kind of twitching at his face a little bit, thinking, what is my best play at this point? I'm kind of running out of options in this situation.
And if you go research into V-Star, I'm pretty sure there's less than 14 cards left available in the deck, so that's going to be another problem. Then you're forced to get Super Rod, and you might put yourself in the same situation as before. That squad could just get trapped. And now, there's no room for a Monkey Dory right now, so you can't trap with Mobile and send the Monkey Dory damage back. You would always be or get enough damage from Squawkabilly where it would go down, right? So that's not really possible, but we're going to see the Prime Catcher onto the Manaphy. I think that's Caleb's best option. Try to open up the Trifrost win condition at some point.
It might be now. It might be up to this here. What
There's
does
the
Caleb
Canceling
find?
Cologne.
Finds the energy switch, the fire, and the canceling cologne. Those were, I think, the perfect 3 cards Caleb needed to find to not burn that V-Star power and keep himself in this game. But this is only step number 1, because from here, I don't know if Caleb has a backup Regidrago V to put in play, and if that means that if this Drago V-Star goes down, Legacy Star may be shut off for the entirety of the game.
I mean, he does have an Ultra Ball and the Goodra, so maybe you go Goodra, KO the Manaphy, prevent yourself from getting taken down next turn, and then you play into the Trifrost somehow.
Yeah, but then if your opponent just plays a Super Rod again and brings the Manaphy back, you don't really have enough resource to make things happen. There's a nice Pokestop, though, and that Super Rod is actually a big find because with the combination of the Nest Ball as well, assuming there's both Drago V in the discard pile, which there are, Pablo, it means he can use this Trifrost while also reestablishing that Regidrago V if he so chooses to.
Here's the Canceling Cologne. We're seeing the Kyurem. Are we not going to get another Drago down at all?
It just feels like you leave yourself so open to your opponent having no way of getting punished towards taking a knockout with a Charmed Drifloon. They're going to know, since that, of course, Jamming Tower is in the discard pile, you're going to have no way to be able to capitalize off this tool, and we're just going to potentially see Trifrost. Caleb, are you sure this is the right route? And I think it is in this situation. We're going to see 3 prizes taken, no Drago V coming down into the bench, and here we go. We've got just the Fezandipiti for support. Do we have a way to find Super Rod, the Bravery Charm, and the Drifloon, plus an energy to retreat this Manaphy. If that's all there, Pablo, then I think the curtains are going to start to slowly close here on Caleb.
I mean, do you still have... Caleb still has Boss, KO, and Fez, right?
That's
with a
true.
single fire, so that's not too horrible. We do see Fez getting a good amount of cards here. No Super Rod, and we have to remember, Michael did use the Pokestop and discard that Drifloon, so one Super Rod has been exhausted. There's only one copy left at this point in time. And you need that, you need a way to find a basic Pokemon, you need an energy to retreat, which we see there's plenty of in the hand. I don't see the Super Rod, and I don't see an Arven. And you have to remember, there were two Arven prized this game. One still remains there.
That is true. Another thing to think about is, you know, you've always got to think to the fact that Radiant Charizard plus something like Boss or Prime Catcher could close out the game on Fezandipity if you go all the way to take that knockout. So it's something that, you know, is always a consideration as well. Drago falls, Charizard could be there to clean the job up.
Yeah, Charizard definitely Caleb's win condition at this point in time, even if Michael does find the opening with the Drifloon. Finding that Super Rod could prove to be problematic, though. We might need to roll the Pokestop yet again.
Is it time? Are we going all in on another Pokestop here? I mean, there is.
We have the Puffin, so it's just a Super
Here
Rod.
we go. Do we see Super Rod? No! Gets rid of the Bravery Charm as well. Another valuable resource hitting the discard pile. And if you're Michael here, I mean, what is your play in this spot? I don't even know if there's something like a Nest Ball to get Monkey out, but then you can't even attach the Monkey Dory here because you need to attach the Manaphy to retreat it for turn. I'm actually not sure here what Michael's best approach is in a situation like this. Pablo, any ideas on Michael just going about this turn here to not necessarily lose on the following turn?
With the V-Star still available, I really don't think so. I mean, you can attach the Dark to the Manaphy, power up Monkey Dory, retreat, confuse the Regidrago, but then they can V-Star back the Prime Catcher, right? So, yeah, it's just not looking good here at all for Michael. You have to wonder whether could it have been worth it to just like start off the turn with Artisan, get the Screamtail, Iono, knock out the Squawkabilly, and hope your opponent doesn't have a way to power up again or find Boss plus Redrago of the two cards? Maybe that could have been a game plan.
Could potentially have indeed. Now, Michael does still have Professor Turo in the hand. So that could allow, you know, some plays where the Manaphy gets picked up. We commit an energy to either this Mawile or the Monkey Dory on the bench. It could also be used just to pick the Fezandipity up to remove that as a potential win condition down the line. What will Michael choose to pick up? And it is actually going to be the Fezandipity. So here we go. Very interesting choice. What are we going to retreat into? We're actually going into the Mawile here. Is there a counter catcher at hand? There is. So, you know, by making this play, we immediately force Caleb to have the Prime Catcher or Switch be one of the guaranteed targets off of one of his two choices from Legacy Star.
Now, is Caleb, though, forced to do it at this point? He can take a turn, use Motivate to repower up the Regidrago V-Star. That way you put less strain on your resources, right? Like, you're not in any rush. Michael is not threatening game with an attack next turn. They cannot take 4 prizes in a single turn. So you could take a chill turn, just Motivate, repower up the Regidrago, and then you're good to go afterwards.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Makes me think maybe there's a world where you are supposed to bring the Mew EX up instead into the active spot, just because I agree. Motivate is completely fine in this spot. It's essentially like your opponent is giving you a bonus turn back, and by saving that, you leave yourself open with a lot of options. Even now, using Super Rod to grab another Regidrago to put on the bench just gives you so many options to possibly close this game out, because it means even if your opponent goes aggressive back into your Regidrago, you'll still be okay to win the game.
Now we do need to dedicate the Super Rod in order to get back energies, and we do need to find that energy if we want to motivate, right? So we're not out of the woods yet. Might even require 2 motivates at this point in time in order to pull that off. Is there an Earthen Vessel left in the hand? I don't see it.
We're going to see what's in the deck. It looks like Research and Fezandipity are the final 2 cards here for Caleb.
Yeah,
Now,
I don't think we can put the energies back. We can Iono try to find one.
yeah, it's not guaranteed necessarily, but it's not a bad option. Now, Caleb did also take the Dragapult off the prizes, so finally we'll see Dragapult come into the discard pile, albeit, a little too late at this point. And I think this may be the risk here for Caleb. Just put back in these resources that are needed off the Super Rod and hope you get that over 50% chance potentially, or right around 50% chance to draw into one of those energies.
I have to wonder about the Charizard getting put back. The Serendipity is no longer in play. Do you really need that as opposed to another energy? I guess you also want enough energy in the discard pile to just put that back as well. I think we see the Iono here. I can't imagine. I mean...
Well, I think the idea here, right, you put the Charizard onto the bench, and then you have a true 50-50 in this spot with the Iono. It's a weird spot, right? But I think that the way Caleb sees this is he's going to grab the Charizard, and even if this Regidrago goes down for some reason, there's maybe a world for some other potential play to happen, though, I'm still wondering what this last bench shot should be committed to. Here we go, though. Big 2 cards for Caleb, and does find the Grass Energy, hits the 50-50, and with this Motivate now, can put Fire and Grass onto the Regidrago and threaten a huge potential game in 2 turns, right? If there's an energy left in the deck, can grab Prime Catcher plus Canceling Cologne and knock out both the Manaphy and Mawile to end the game.
Yep, you could see, well, viewers couldn't see, but I could see Michael shaking his head, knowing that perhaps bringing up the Squawk ability was not the best idea because of that Motivate attack. I wish we had seen it earlier. We do see it now, and those 2 energies are so huge. Recovering those 2 resources in this super scrappy game for both, I think Caleb can see the writing on the wall. There's no way to pick both of these Pokemon up. The Professor Turo has already been exhausted. The Palpad, it's right there in the discard pile. So even if you could pick both of them up, you need to power up Gardevoir to take a knockout here. Monkey Dory can now take Gardevoir out of range of Giratina, but there's still 2 Pokemon in range, even if you can Professor Turo. So I think the writing's on the wall, Ethan. I think Caleb, because he's been very diligent saving that V-Star, I think that's going to be the writing on the wall here.
There is nothing like Legacy Star. It is truly the V-Star power to rival all others at this point. Just guaranteed resource recovery is so good in the Pokemon TCG. And this game was completely flipped upside down after terrible prizing, lackluster draws, and just missing what seemed to be achievement after achievement for each turn. Caleb has found a way to claw himself back to this game. Michael's going to still do everything he can, grab these dark energies. Monkey Dory will finally be online, but it really comes down to that. Caleb has already had the Canceling Cologne and the Prime Catcher in his hand. All he'll need is just a Grass Energy or Energy Switch, and he will be moving on to the top 8.
There's definitely a Grass Energy left because it's one of the resources he put back into the deck. The question is, can he find it fast enough?
Here we go, and has the Grass Energy. That's all that Caleb needs. Legacy Star, Prime Catcher, and Canceling Cologne. And after a crazy back and forth set, Caleb Gedemer comes out on top again against Michael Davidson, advancing into top 8.
Caleb, very diligent, just showing the cards, making sure everything is clear for the judges, for the players, for